Hello and welcome to the Graphic 45 YouTube channel. My name is Linh, or LVHandcrafted here on YouTube, and today I'll be making a crossover pointy card using the Graphic 45 Steampunk and Spells. I'm using the 8x8 version of the Deluxe Collector's Edition. This card is going to be a 6x6 card, but there are some aspects of it that make it a little bit special. And what I've done in advance is I've already trimmed off two corners of my card base here. So this started off as just your standard 6x6 card base. From the front of the card base, you can see I've actually cut off those two corners on the left and the right. The way to do that is really simple, and you'll do the same with all of the mats and layers like this mat piece that I have already cut. And that is to find the bottom of your panel or your card front and mark the center point along that bottom edge. And from there, you just want to cut a line from that center point to the top corner of that panel. And you'll want to do the exact same thing on the other side so that you get these two triangle pieces. So the white piece, the white triangle came from the card base itself. You do want to save that piece. And the copper pearlescent specialty card that I'm using, I started that off as a 6x6 piece of cardstock that I trimmed in the exact same way as I did the card base. And that's because I didn't want any of the white card base to show. If you did want some of that white card base to show, then you would just start off with a panel that is smaller than 6x6. And you would follow the exact same steps, and that is to mark the center point along the bottom edge of your panel, and then trim a diagonal line from that center point to the top corner, and trim from that center point to the opposite top corner, just as you see it on my illustration on the left there. And I'll be adding some pattern paper to this, and you'll see in a moment that with the pattern paper, I did start off with a panel that's smaller than 6x6 so that some of this really lovely copper pearlescent paper will show through. And what I'm doing is just inking all of the edges because the papers do have a white core. So with a paper that there's already so much black on it, and it does have that sort of kind of a darker look to it, a little bit more vintagey, a little bit more grungy. So if you feel like you're working with papers where that white core is going to be distracting, then just take a nice dark ink. I used Graphic 45's hybrid ink pad in classic black, and then just ink those edges. That way you don't see that white core of the paper. And so I'll go ahead and apply my pattern papers, and you can see because I started off with a panel that is smaller than 6x6, as I apply each of these sections, I still have a nice little margin where I can still see that pearlescent card below it. If you want to see me actually prepping all of these pieces, you can pop on over to my channel because I leave all of that prep work in my video, and that way I can keep this video a little bit shorter for you. So now that I have my mats and layers all attached, what I'm going to do is start to assemble my card. So with this piece of black cardstock here, I just want to trim a little triangle to actually add to the back of one of my panels. And that's because these two triangle pieces are going to overlap one another. And the one that's on top is I want that to lay as flush or flat to the card as possible. But because there's it's going over different number of layers of cardstock, what I'll do is just with some of this scrap paper, try to level or even that out. As I place these triangles, what I'm looking to achieve is that the 3 points of the triangle should hit each edge of my card base. So this piece here, that top point should touch the top of the card, and the 2 points at the bottom of the triangle should touch the bottom edge of the card base and the right edge of the card base. So that's what I'm looking for as I position this. And you should be able to kind of nudge around these triangular panels to find the exact right position where the 3 points of your triangle will meet three edges of your card base. And because I do like to burnish anytime I use any type of adhesive, that's the other reason why I feel like it's important to kind of add that extra little bit of cardstock to level things off, because if you do have an uneven surface, when you burnish over top of that, you could create that little bit of a ridge or a little bit of a bump. So I find that you just get a slightly nicer finish if you try to kind of level off some of those uneven surfaces. So I've already prepared a lot of pieces so that I can start to assemble and compose my card. And as I mentioned earlier, if you want to see how I made the rosette, how I made the paper straws, pop on over to my channel and you'll see I've left all of that in the beginning of my video. But this, I feel like, is the fun part, where you have all of your bits and pieces and you can just play with the composition. So this is going to be a birthday card, and I already have this happy birthday circle die cut out actually 3 times. Because I'm working from the 8x8 paper pad, I don't have the chipboard elements or even the cardstock stickers. So when that's the case, if you do have die cuts that you're using, you can just die cut multiple times and glue those together. And after 2 or 3 layers, you're going to get a piece that feels very substantial, almost like a chipboard element. The other elements that I have, I've actually just fussy cut them out of some of the pattern papers. And if you're like me and you're not a big fan of fussy cutting, I'm not a huge fan, mostly because I'm not super great at fussy cutting. Again, inking your edges is really going to save the day, because if you feel like you've cut it a little bit unevenly, when you go to ink up the edges, you won't hardly be able to notice at all that you've got sort of an uneven border around your image. So I highly recommend inking up your edges if you're like me and you don't have perfect fussy cutting skills. So I think I have a composition that I really, really like, and so I'm going to start to glue things down. And similar to what I did with that topmost triangle piece, as I go to attach anything down, I'm going to try as best as I can to make the surface below it a little bit more even. So for example, this clock piece here, it originally did have, I think, a Halloween-y kind of element to it. It could be because Steampunk Spells is or can be used for Halloween projects or cards, but if you're selective about the papers that you're using, it doesn't strictly have to be Halloween themed. As you can see here, I'm turning or using it on a birthday card. I just think that there's some really lovely images in this really kind of antique-y, steampunky theme. So I've got my clock down. I'm going to start to build things up one by one. And so the beautiful thing with making rosettes is that, especially from double-sided paper, you saw a moment ago, I just sort of double-checked the back of that to see if I might prefer the design on the other side, which I actually really loved that look of all the different colors. And that's the beautiful thing with rosettes, because your of the fan fold, accordion fold, to create the design of the rosette, it doesn't really matter what orientation your paper is in. It doesn't matter the exact pattern. What you're looking for more than anything is color. And that's the only reason why I chose to use this more solid blue rather than the other side of that paper, which was more multicolored, because I felt like I really needed something solid. And here again is where I'm just adding an extra layer of cardstock to this scroll that I fussy cut out of one of the pattern papers, just because parts of this is going to get glued down, but then parts of it's also going to hang off the edge. So that's why I want it to feel a little bit more substantial, be a little bit stronger, so that the part that's hanging off the edge doesn't tear away. And so I'm gonna eventually kind of tuck that under my piece here. And the reason why I'm using a hot glue gun, which I don't typically use when I'm making cards, but I find the hot glue gun really, really helpful when working with rosettes, because one, it can really kind of sink into and work around all of those mountains and valleys. So that glue will just kind of sink where it needs to sink. And as well, your hot glue gun's going to set really quickly. So it lets me it gives me a little bit of time to kind of nudge things around a little bit, but then once it's set, it's going to be rock hard, and I don't have to wait for very long for that glue to dry before continuing to build up on it. And you can see with this card, there's just so many different layers, so many different elements that are getting built upon each other. And so having a hot glue gun is really, really nice in for projects like these. Just really be careful not to touch the hot glue, because you could burn yourself. And as well, because you don't have a ton of time, you want to know where everything's gonna go before you start to apply your hot glue. Here is a close-up look at the final card. You can see there's a lot of dimension here, so this is not the kind of card that is going to be easy to ship. So you probably want to put it in a nice box, maybe put some tissue over top too, so that the elements don't crumple. But I love how it turned out. Because it's got the 3 points at the bottom, it stands really, really nicely as well. So this is going to be a lovely card to put on display. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to like, share, and leave a comment. And we would definitely love it if you haven't already. Subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell so that you can get a notification whenever new projects are posted. Thanks so much. Until next time, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Bye.